Hi everyone, and welcome to this webinar looking at styling skin elements. My name's Martin Hopkins, and I'll be joined today by...
Hi everyone, Karen here. I'll be working in the background helping out with the Q&As, which we will have periodically throughout the webinar. And if you have a question, please use the Q&A tab, not the chat tab, but the Q&A tab. It kind of functions a little bit differently. But of course, feel free to chat away in the chat box. But if you have a specific question, leave it in the Q&A and we'll get to it. And also try to keep your questions focused on the topic at hand. And yeah. So I'll see you later. Have a good webinar.
Thank you, Karen. Hi everyone. Right, as said, this webinar is looking at styling skill elements. So here's an example. What I've got is a couple of rectangles here, but I've added a border radius just to one corner. Here we go. So this is actually three rectangles all bunched up together, but with the border radius it's making the background look a little bit better. Also, these are standard text boxes with some styling attached, and the same for node images as well. We've got filters and other things going on. Right, so that's basically what we're going to be getting up to today. So what I want to do is start off by just opening up a skin. So let's just go to, this is a blank skin, this is a brand new skin, and what I want to do is just look at the type of styling we can do already within the skin editor. So I'm going to select a rectangle. Alright, so here's a rectangle. We use these quite a lot. The attributes we can change obviously are size, position, scaling of it, is it visible, blah blah blah, the alpha of it, so does it fade in and out. But we can also change the background color, we can change the color of the background, and we can change the border and border color as well. So these are some of the attributes that we can already do and style within Pano 2VR. If we have a look at the text box, you'll see that again we've got a very similar, most of our elements have a seamless theme to them. So if I was to just go back and get the rectangle, you'll see that under rectangle you'll see that the attributes to that, but the text box will also have a rectangle because the text is inside a box. So basically this is the box's attributes for the text box. So that's why we and we have that sort of similar theme going right through most of the elements that you'll see. So yeah, so that's basically all the basic styling that we can do within Pano 2VR. Okay, now we turned around and said, or basically I was saying that, look, you know, I'm targeting this for non-programmers and for people that don't know about CSS and other things. Now, if you're not familiar with CSS is cascading styling sheets, and it was a way where a web developer could set, if you like, a style of all the text and everything else that's going to appear in a website, and then all text boxes and everything else use that particular style. We have something very similar within Pano 2VR, and it's called the embedded style sheet. And if you click on the skin's canvas, you'll see that the you'll have the properties for the skin, and under the embedded style sheet you'll see that we've got this particular style sheet. So it's saying font family, so it's going to go for the first font. If that fails, second, third, etc., and it states the font size as well. So that's basically how we've styled every single text box within Pano 2VR. Okay, so with that said, so we can we can enter CSS coding here, but we can also enter CSS coding for individual elements. And if I scroll down under the advanced tab of each element, you'll see that we have, now depending on the element, we'll have CSS classes, styles, and styles inner element. Now styles in an inner element will only work with things like text boxes. A rectangle doesn't have an inner element, so therefore it doesn't have that. Classes, well, in short, I'm not going to be using them today because that's the next step, and you do need to know a little bit more. And I'm not about that today. I'm going to keep it nice, light, and simple. But basically, you can actually in the style sheet, you could actually put in some complicated styles of something, and then say and just give it a name. And the idea is that if you go to the text box and under the classes, I say give it a name, it's technically called, you give it a class, but between you and me it's a name. And then basically you would type that in here, and then this text box would then pick up all of those styles in that style sheet. All right, but alternatively you can add these styles individually in here as well, or the styles inner element as well. Okay, so that's basically an introduction to styles. As I say, that's we can style quickly rectangles and text boxes. Now what I want to do is look at some basic CSS and some basic terminology to go and to actually find out where to go and to start using it. So here's a text box, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this text box and paste it. So I've got two stacked on top of each other, and I'm going to draw a container around them. I'm going to call the container a button. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this normal, and this one active, right? Just for words. And I'm going to deselect the visible of the active one and say that under the logic block, that when we mouse over the parent, i.e. the container, we're going to turn mouse over parent true. We're going to make the text box visible true. So as an example, if I was to change the text box color now to say yellow, if we have a look at the skin preview, you can see it's white, and when I hover over it we see the yellow one appearing. So that in itself is a way that you could create a button if you wished. All right, but what I want to do is start looking at some more fancy things. So the first thing I want to look at really is text shadows, because they always make text look good. So as an example, I'm going to select both of the text boxes, and I'm going to select the background to be, I don't know, let's make them slightly grey. There we go. And I'm going to change the text color, because I've got both text boxes selected. When I change an attribute, I'm changing the attribute for both, so they're both now white. So just to test that, if I open up the preview and hover over it, nothing's changing because both text boxes are identical. Okay, but I want to look at text shadow. So what I would do is open up your web browser, and basically the search phrase is going to be text shadow, because there is another phrase called box shadow, and that would be for the actual text box itself, to give the text box a drop shadow, but we want to give the text a drop shadow. So let's just look for so I would actually search for text shadow CSS, and my favorite website pops up, W3 Schools, and what we're looking for is this line. So it starts off, it basically says text shadow, and it always ends with a semicolon. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm going to copy that. I can close this, and I'm going to select the normal one, so the one I see all the time, and I'm going to scoot right down till we get to the CSS inner styles, and I'm going to paste that. Now this is actually quite harsh. If we have a look at what we've actually got here, now you don't have to, as I say, programming aside, because I'm not and this isn't, basically what this is saying, it's a text shadow, so a text drop shadow. And what we're saying here is we've got 2 pixels. So basically with a drop shadow, we're always moving it to the right and down. So that's 2 pixels to the right, 2 pixels down, and this would be the color. And the color in this case is RGB, so FF means it's red. So if I click, actually I'll leave that there. If I open up the preview now, he says, oh hang on, let's close that first and open that preview. You'll see that we've actually got, that's indeed what's happened. So under the normal one, you'll see that I've got a red drop shadow. Now that's a bit harsh, to be fair, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that to 1 pixel each way, and I'm going to take out the FF, which would mean it's red, so 0, 0. And here you can see now that we've got this text shadow going on. And when I hover over it, we're obviously changing to the other text box that's got no shadow attached. All right, so we've made a very, very simple rollover effect. Very simple with two text boxes. Now, why am I using two text boxes and not just putting loads of CSS into one? Because I want to do things like when, if this button was going to activate a node, I could use the skin editor's logic block to keep one text box shown and the other one hidden, so I have more control within the skin editor. And again, also want to try and keep things nice and simple. All right, so that's basically adding a bit of text shadow. Now, if you have a look at the values here, we've got basically this is +1 +1. All right, so it's a positive value. It's 1. Okay, so what I'm going to do is double click this and copy it. Okay, and now I'm going to go to the active button and I'm going to paste this in. But this time round, I'm going to give it a negative value. I'm going to put a minus in front of them. And what that's going to do is go up 1 pixel and go to the left 1 pixel. And it's going to create like an indent effect. Here we go. Alright, so that's two text boxes and we're creating this like indent effect as well. So that's quite cool. Alright. Okay, so that's basically very, very softly introduction to a bit of CSS and where to stick in it or where to enter it into the text box. Now, I'm going to quickly ask Karen, do we have any questions? Because I need a drink.
Yeah, we have questions, but I have my own question. How do you know to put that CSS into the inner element field?
Right. Okay.
How did you know that?
Right. I work with Thomas and Christoph, that's why. No. And I'm forever getting beaten over the head with a heavy book if I don't. No. Basically, with the CSS styles, you've obviously, with the text box, you've got the outer and you've got the inner element. And basically, I've always, with this, and I know this is going to sound really, really simple and really stupid, but basically talking to Christoph and Thomas, and for those that don't know, Thomas, Lord Almighty, Chief Gnome, and owns everything and Chief whatever, and Christoph is the skin monkey that codes all the skin editor and everything else that goes along with it. My two go-to gurus. Basically, they've always said to me that if you're going to be using custom CSS in an element, if the inner styles is available, you always go for the inner styles. If you've got something that's only got the CSS styles like this one, you would place it there. So as an example, if I was to go to, well, let's do it. Let's not do an example. I'll just quickly show you because that was something I was actually going to do, but we'll do it now because it's relevant. So if we do CSS, now as I say, part of this is just getting to know the terminology. So I'm going to use box shadow. Oh, it's already been there, so that's it. Again, go to W3 School. So it's very, very similar. We have two here. Now, basically, again, it's that line of code with the semicolon on the end. So box shadow with a semicolon. This one will use the default color, which is black, but this one allows you to specify a color. All right, so I'm going to use that one because that's always handy if you wish to change it later. So I'm going to copy that. All right, now, okay, if I was to go back to the text box, now the rectangle only has a CSS style. So if I was to put this in there and have a look at it, you'll see that it's actually, the box has now got the drop shadow, whilst I've still got the styles in the text box. So basically, to cut a long story short, I've always been told, go for the styles inner element. If it doesn't work, use the CSS styles outer element. And if that doesn't work, it's not going to work. That's it. Very, very simple.
Cool. Yeah, so basically, okay, so, yeah, okay. So that was my question. There's a few other questions here.
No, go and shoot. Absolutely.
So, I think, yeah. So Marcus, hi Marcus. So he's asking, If I use classes, and maybe you get to this later, but I think it's we can answer it now.
I'm not touching classes because I say I'm on this one. I want to keep it really simple. I really just want to bring people into. I mean, I'm targeting people that don't know code, have never touched CSS before, never done styling, and we're just touching on using the styles inside.
Okay. But I'm going to ask his question anyway, and I think you can say yes or no, or I can say it. Do I have to input the name with the dot in front of the name or without?
No.
Yeah.
No. So in the classes here, it would be you just put the class in with no dot.
There we go. Okay. So Oliver is asking, are all the styles exported to a CSS file upon publishing, or you mean outputting, I think, and so they can be edited live on the web server afterwards?
No. If you want to do that, you can create your own CSS style or Cascade style sheet, as it's called, and here you could external file and add that. So here's those. So you would give the link to it on your server, and then you would add that to Pano2VR. But Pano2VR uses its own internal one here, and this is what ours looks like, and you would just add to this. But no, we would not externalize that. It's built into the skin JavaScript file, I do believe. So it's not a separate file on export.
Okay. And the last question comes from Corolla asking, is it possible to let viewers of a virtual tour copy the text in a text box?
Right, this has come up before. Yes, you can with a bit of fiddling. I can't remember exactly how to do this off the top of my head, but it did come up, and Thomas did show me, and there is a way of doing it.
I think it's in the forum too somewhere.
I mean, it did crop up, and someone did ask, and I found out from Thomas how to do it, or Christoph. I can't remember which one I asked now, but one of the guys gave me the how-to do that, and I did it that way, and it's in the forum or somewhere. I mean, basically, if you need to know, then obviously I either try and search the forum for it or just send an email into support. I can't remember how to do it off the top of my head, and to be honest, it's out of scope of what we're doing today anyway. So
okay, all right,
which is my excuse. Good.
All right, so that's it, and thanks everyone for your questions so far. I'll let you keep going.
Okay. Thank you very much. Right, so let's crack on then. So this is our text box, and obviously I've added a drop shadow to it. I'm going to take the drop shadow away because I don't really want that. So let's go back to the normal one, he says, and take that away. Okay. Oh, there's another little thing as well. If you'll see this pencil logo, basically you actually have a text entry field here, but when you click the pencil logo, it opens up a bigger editor, and you can type in the code, and it's just easier to do that. All right. We've also got this in user data text fields and things like that. So where you need to enter a bit more code, or a bit more text, should I say, you can. Right, okay, so that's basically the button that we've created by using, we can use two different colours, but we can use a drop shadow and for the text and things like that. So that's quite good. The other thing that we can do with a text box is I'm actually going to close this project and open another one just to show you, because the project, this came up not so long back, so I built it for somebody and I kept it for this webinar. But basically, one of the other CSS tricks that we can do with text boxes, so let's go to the skin, is there is actually a CSS called maxheight. All right, so if we look at this text box here, this, funny enough, we keep getting asked for this, but this is actually a pop-up image with text. All right, so the pop-up image, it's got a blue background color, and what I've done is I've colored the text box the same color, and it's attached to the bottom, but it's actually a separate element. All right, so it's not like one element and we've put a text box and picture in there. But what I've done with this text box is given it max height of 120 pixels. Now this is a max height attribute that we've added to this text box. Now this is a little bit odd in the way that how I've organized the checkboxes, because normally if you're going to add text to a text box, if you don't select word wrap, text just runs off to the left or right and drops off and you don't see it. So word wrap, it then causes it to wrap round. auto size will then cause the box to auto expand. All right. And then you've got scroll bars. Now you wouldn't normally have auto size and scroll bars working together, because if you fix a size and give it scroll bars, once you've filled it up, the scroll bars then appear. Or you don't have scroll bars and you have auto size, so the text box keeps going. It keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. All right, but the question was raised, I want a text box to get bigger and bigger and bigger to a certain size and stop, then scroll bars appear. And this is exactly what this does. So what we're doing is in the CSS styles, we're actually adding a max height of 120 pixels. So what we're saying here is I'm going to word wrap, I'm going to auto size, but when I get to 120 pixels, it's going to stop. And then we're going to go and see scroll bars. So let's see this in action. So basically these two bottom ones have got a nice picture and a bit of text. All right. But when the text is longer than 120 pixels, the scroll bars automatically cut in. And the idea is with this is that you don't, so you can have loads of, start that again. The idea of this is you can have one element with varying amounts of text that does allow it to expand a little bit, but it's never going to be that much where it ridiculously falls off the bottom of the screen. So this one has got loads of text, and we see loads of text there, where this same element hasn't got any. It's just about reaching the 120 pixel mark, so there's no scroll bar. So I'm going to keep this, and obviously what we tend to do is wrap up all the files from a webinar, and you guys can download them. So you will be able to download this, because as a pop-up or image pop-up, this is actually quite cool. So yeah, it does work well, and yeah, it was a fix to, or a solution to a problem, and the solution was this tiny piece of this tiny line called max height. Now there is max width as well. I don't know where I was going to use max width, but I'm using max height, and that works well. Obviously I could have set that to, you know, however many pixels I wanted this text box to expand. So I've started it off, I think, at 20. I could have started off at 10. It doesn't matter, because it's set to auto size until it gets to 120. But anyway, so that's another CSS trick, or style trick that you can do. All right. Okay, so let's just escape from here and go back to my main project. Okay, so that's a nice little one there for the text box for its size. Okay, so let's go back to the skin then. And I've got my button, I've got an active, and I've got a normal. What I want to do is make this look more like a button. All right, so what I decided to do is, right, well, I've seen some pretty nice buttons done in CSS, so I just did a search, and I just did CSS buttons. Now I've had a good look around, but I actually found this one. I'm going to take you straight to it, save you guys having a look. But basically what this website did was it showed me loads of buttons that you can make. So we've got some buttons here that don't look particularly impressive. These ones are getting there. Let's scroll down a bit more, and we've got some nice ones now. That this one's bulging out, that looks quite nice, and I settled on this one. I like this one a lot. This gives you a nice subtle bulging out effect. So the CSS for this is all of this lot, which I thought, blooming heck, do we really need all that? Well, the answer is no, because basically what's going on is that we've got a text shadow, or a box shadow, but it's inset. All right, so it's inwards, it's coming inwards. So I looked down this list and I thought, right, box shadow, inset, right, well, this is the only line that's got that. So I copied that, and I went to my normal box, and I added that to there. All right, clicked OK, had a look, and we've now got this. Even though it's still sort of grey, it's given it this effect that I wanted, this effect of it slightly raised. All right, so I thought, okay. So the only other bit of code in there, I don't know if I've still got this open. Yes, I have. Right, let's close that. The only other bit of code in there that I spotted that I liked was, let me see where it is. If I go back to it, have I gone past it? I don't know where is it gone. Button 8. button 7. Here we go. So the only other code I was looking for was its color. So we've got the background color. Now, as I say, you know, I did say this is not for coders, but, you know, take the fears and worries to one side. What we're looking for here is a word that says background color, and there it is. So I just need that line. As I said before, it always ends with a semicolon. So I know that that is exactly what I need, or would need, to add that color to my text box. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy the color, all right, because that's a really nice color, and I'm going to add that to my button. There we go. So that was the color. We can just copy and paste. I'm going to do the same thing here as well and keep it together. So they're both the same color. Okay, so now let's have a look and see what we've got. And that's starting to look quite cool. All right, we're starting to see we've got this bevel effect going on. I've got the top, the text drop shadow. So when I hover over it, it turns into an indent. And of course, we've got the code on the normal one to make it bulge out, and on the active text box there's no CSS to make it bulge out, so it's flat, so it gives the appearance of it bulging inwards or going inwards. So that's quite a nice effect. So that's one little thing we can do there. And of course what I can do is I could let's select both of these. I'm going to take away the border, and I'm going to give it a little bit of a curved edge. There we go. So let's see what this looks like. So this is basically getting on how we want it to look like. That's quite good. All right, I'm happy with that. So let's go back to the preview, and there it is. Okay, if I was to go back to that website, just on a search, so CSS buttons, where are we? So this was the responsive button, and it was button 7. He says, what's that note? Have I gone too far? 5, 6, 7. Right. You can also see here that on the active button there was another drop shadow. So basically, to give you the rollover effect, the normal button had this inner shadow. Now the reason why you've got loads of text here is because it's actually giving an inner shadow, I assume, to each corner. So they're controlling the amount of inner shadow of each color or each corner of the text, or the actual box the text is in. So this one obviously has changed it, because the idea is of when the button's active, you're using this one. So box shadow slightly different. So we can apply that to our text box. So let's add that to it and see what that gives us. Does that improve it any? Yes, it does. You can see when I've hovered over it, it's applied more shadow to the top area. It's lighter at the bottom, and of course it's the reverse. When the mouse away and we're back to the normal one, it's darker at the bottom and lighter at the top, which is also helping that effect. Okay, so that's actually quite a nice little button. So what I could do with this is, if I wanted to make this into, say, I don't know, a drop down menu, what I would just do is just add a cloner, draw a cloner around it, something like that. That's probably too big, but never mind. And we could then change it to being vertical. What I would also want to do is change the text so it picks up the user data title by using the insert placeholder, user data and title. I would do that for both of them. So highlight the text, so we're going to delete that, user data, title. Okay, so if I now have a look at this, we've got our 4 buttons. I've just made it a bit too big in the cloner, so let's just sort that out. Nope, tell a lie. I'm looking at the wrong element. Do apologise. Right, that's 1010, so it's 10 pixels from the left, 10 pixels right for the cloner, and I'm going to insert the text box, probably 2 pixels down. The text box is what, 100 by 20. So the cloner is going to be 100, and I'm going to do that by say 22, and that should, there we go, so that's evenly spaced out. So basically what I've done there is given the cloner 2 more pixels, because if it was exactly the same size there would be no gap, but the mere fact I've given the cloner another extra pixel gives me a gap in between. Alright, so to carry this on then, to make it a button, I would just give it the action of mouse click, open next panorama. It would go to the hotspot URL and I would use the default view. If I was just to publish this now, we should end up with a nice way of getting to our different nodes. Alright, the only other thing I would do to tidy this up is on the active one, I would give it the hand cursor as well, because obviously I want to show people there's interaction with mouse interaction with it, and that's exactly what it's doing there. Here we go. So yes, that's basically using, you know, a standard text box within the skin. We've added drop shadow, then we've added drop shadow with the a drop shadow but with minus numbers, so it looks like it's indented. So is it, the words I was googling was embossed, that's embossed, and that's debossed apparently. But anyway, that's making the buttons. So that's basically some CSS styling just on text boxes, and you can make things look oh so nice and sweet. Okay, I'm going to jump back to rectangles now, and the reason for that is that I'm going to add a background to this. So let's just make sure that I've got the sizes right. This is why I do like the preview. The preview is really handy. If I put the buttons above, you can see I've got the right order, because obviously in the skins tree, the higher the element, the more forward it is. So the buttons are now more forward than the rectangle, the background. And I can select the background now and resize this, and I can see how big I actually want this in the output. All right, because I know I've got no more buttons. There's no need for a scroll element or anything like that. I just wanted to get that size I wanted. There you go. So that's what it's going to look like on the output, which is really nice. However, what I'm going to do now is make the buttons a child of this rectangle, so that's now all together. And we're just going to call this background because I can, and I'm going to set this to 0, 0, so it's nice and snug against the skins window. So right on the window there. And I'm going to get rid of the border. I don't want you to see the border. And I think what I'll also do is just change its color. I'm going to change it to black, and I'm going to set the alpha to say, I don't know, 100. So it's just a simple little background. Okay, so there's our rectangle behind this now. And what I want to do, like as we showed you before, I want to put a curve here. Now with Pano 2 VR, in the actual skins or the elements properties under rectangle, I've got radius, and when I adjust this, it adjusts the radius of all 4 corners together like that. But I don't want to do that. I only want to adjust one. Okay, so I can't use the radius there. So again, what we're going to do, another little buzzword here is CSS and radius. Okay, and again, W3 Schools, go to website, and this is what we've got. So if we have a look, it's saying border width. Well, I'm not worried about border, but border radius. Okay. So here is exactly what our radius button is doing in Pano 2 VR. It's one value. With one value, you adjust all corners. All right. If we scroll down, here we can see we can really snazz things up. You know, we can really play with this. So if we have a look here, border radius. First value applies. So here we've got 4 values. So basically I've got a value for each corner. Okay, so basically what this one is telling me is that the first value is top left, then the second, so that's the first, second, I think that's third and fourth, could be wrong. Anyway, best way to do that is to play with it. So border radius, don't forget it ends with a semicolon. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to put it into the styles, CSS styles, into the rectangle. Now if I just open up the preview and see what it looks like, it's a very odd shape, because that's the shape the settings were set to when I copied it from the website. So if I open up the values, in actual fact, if I adjust this now, I've got to click OK and then you'll see it here. But if I just adjust the value in this box, you'll see it real time. So if I select 15 and take that to 0, you'll see that that curve's gone. So it's a straight edge. The next one is 50. If I take that to 0, you'll see that one's gone. The last one is 5 pixels. I've got a little tiny little nick off there and I don't want that either, so I'm going to set that to 0. So yeah, so it's top left, top right, bottom right. So yeah, bottom left. Sorry, bottom left, bottom right. Okay, so I could actually adjust that. So I could put 50, make that a bit more, but that's too much. Or I could even drop that down to say 30 and give you a nice little corner. So again, that's how we're affecting just one border. Good news is in another version of Pano 2 VR, in another life, you'll be able this will be able to be done from the interface. But for the moment, in version 6, you would just use this radius, CSS radius, and then you can really go to town and play with it. You could, you can do some really silly stuff, make some boxes look really odd. So yeah, there's a little curve there and a bigger one there, and of course, because of all the values are different, you can, change and make things look really, really odd. I don't know if you guys saw my video that I made for the advert for this, but I had this styling applied to some node images and made the thumbnails look a bit odd as well, with the different corners in different curves. Anyway, so that's basically some CSS styling for the text boxes and for the boxes in general, and with the radius. With that, I'm going to ask, do we have any questions, Karen?
Hello. Oliver is asking.
Hello.
Hi. Oliver is asking, I assume you can, well, he's stating, asking, I assume you can apply a style to the overall button instance above the normal and active states?
You can, but the reason I was doing it on its own was because I was saying that I want to be able to control this with Pano 2 VR's logic block. Like with the rectangle, for argument's sake, I could change its shape of a button, because you can apply this radius to the text box as well. So you could have the text box with a curve one side, or if you wanted a button to stick out the corner so it's flat at the back but curved at the front, you could just use this in that text box, and you could use it in the button. But the thing is, right, is if I applied the radius to the container and not the buttons, the container, I can say, right, use masking so it clips the text boxes so you get the round edge. But the problem is, if you wanted to use the border, then the border's going to get clipped. So if you apply this directly to the text box, then the border of it also, well, hang on, let's just do it. Let's just show you. Right, okay, so here's a text box, boom, it's got a border to it. If I apply the style there, let's have a look. You can see I've just got this one, we've just copied it, so we've made it look like this. You can see that you've got the border is also following this style as well. Let's move that into a lighter area so you can see it better. So yeah, so you've got the border that's following the style that we've set. Had I put this particular style into the parent element, so the container, because the container's now that shape, but the inner element wouldn't be, and you'd interfere with this border. So in this case, it was prudent to just apply this to the individual elements. The other thing is as well, which I haven't done yet, but I can do whilst we're here, is we can say that not only on mouse over parent is true, we're going to see it, we could also say is if the node is true, it will stay like that as well. So we can now apply logic blocks to the boxes. So the active node is indented, or what do they call it? Embossed, unbossed? No, what did I say? I forget now.
Embossed.
But anyway, embossed. Embossed.
Embossed.
Embossed. Debossed. That was the word I was looking for. So
Or
that's debossed and that's embossed or embossed or whatever. Anyway, one's with the text sticking out, one's with the text sticking in. Okay, so, and you can see now with those logic blocks, I can now control each one separately. So that's why in this particular case, I'm actually inserting the code to the individual elements and not to a parent. I hope that answered that question. Please.
I think so. We haven't heard otherwise. And that was the only question.
Cool. Right. Okay. The other one then I want to have a little play with. I mean, I take it everyone's happy with that. We could, create lots of different borders and backgrounds and style them and do all sorts, and yeah, loads of fun. So you can really start making things shine and look good just by using box standard elements in the skin. Right. The other element I want to look at is the node image and what we can do with this. Because the node image is very much like the map, is you cannot use an internal type drop shadow. You could with a rectangle, because the rectangle has just got a background. All right, so what I could do is if I had a rectangle here, all right, and let's just go for drop shadow. So if I go to CSS box shadow, there we go. So let's go to W3 and see the box shadow. Let's do the one with the color. All right, so if I was to add that to the styles, okay, we have a look. There's the box shadow. It's gray, so let's change the color to 00000, which is black, which I know is black. All the F's is white, all the zeros is black. Let's just change this to 1 and 1. Okay, so this is our box shadow. All right, he says 1 and 1. Right, so we've got a 1 pixel box shadow. We've obviously got our border, but we've added the box shadow as well, so hence why it's a little bit darker here. But what you can do is, if we were to have a look at that web page, I don't know if I still got, no I haven't, right, okay, but what you would have seen in that web page as well is that you can type in the word inset. All right, and what inset does, it makes it look like it's sunken in. Yeah, so debossed, that's the word. All right, so it makes it look like it's sunk in, so debossed. Now the other thing as well that you would have picked up on that website, and let's actually go back, because that's half the trick of this, is knowing where to get stuff and what to look for. So let's just do that. Okay, can't do that just yet. Let's just, why is that? Because that's open, then I can close that, and let's go back to the website. So let's just do this. Box shadow W3. Right, so here you can see some of the attributes. So basically that's a standard one which will give you black. This one gives you as I say, X amount of pixels to the right, X amount of pixels down, and a color. Okay, but if we scroll down, we've got add a blur effect. Wow, so we can blur stuff, and this one defines the spread radius of the shadow as well. Okay, so what on earth does that all mean? Right, well, let's copy that and paste it into my let's just open that up. Let's copy and paste that into there, and let's just change the color back to black again, so we can, so 000000, and let's just type the word inset. Okay, right, so is that gonna work? Probably not. Let's have a look. So we've done all that. Right, I can't see it because it's actually, right, yeah, can't see it because it's got a background. If I was to take away the background, he says, you should be able to see it, and I'm not. Right, okay, let's see why I'm not seeing that. No, wrong thing. Let's go back. Right, so box shadow. So we've got 10 pixels. 10. I think it's because it's too blurry. All right, so live preview. Live preview. Yes, of course. Thank you, Christoph. Of course, you only see it in the live preview. So here it is. Yeah, right. Well done. I completely forgot that. Of course, when you're doing CSS, you don't actually see it until either live preview or output. Okay, so that's another gotcha, which just got me. All right, so here we go. So now you can see that this is really thick because there's so much. So I'm just going to type in 1 pixel by 1 pixel. All right, if we click OK to that, you can see that it's now starting with this box shadow or inner shadow part of it, but it's still quite intense. So I'm going to set that to say 2, see what happens there. We've actually lost the blurry effect. We've now gone to more of a solid. All right, and the solid part of that is this last figure. So if we go say, so basically, am I still on this web? No, God, I keep closing this website, which is a real pain. So let's just do CSS. Have I typed that in? Yep. Box shadow. Get back to it. By the end of this, you guys are going to know this off by heart, right? Okay. So here, so basically, what it says is we've got how many pixels to the right, how many pixels down, the blur, how much blur we're going to affect to it, and then the radius, so the spread radius. So the higher that pixel count, the more we're going to see. I'm actually going to move that to my other screen so I don't close it. So if I was to set that to 0, all right, and have a look, you'll see it's not too bad. In fact, if it's 0, I don't actually need to have that in there. I could take that out and just only have the pixels to the right, down, and blur. All right. If I set the pixels to 0, 0, so there is no light or right or down, all right, I can just add blur. So I could let's just add 5 pixels of blur, and we get a nice blur on the inside. So I got a funny feeling on a text box, sorry, not on a text box, but on an element such as a rectangle, because there's no active inner part, you will see this appear. All right, what you can't do is see this inside a node image or a map element, because a node image and a map element have a background, but they're also pulling data in over the top of it. So a node image is pulling an image over the top of it, and the ordering is the image, then the background, and of course the CSS is being applied to the background. So just to show you this and to prove a point, let's go to this text box, this rectangle. Let's copy this code, and I'm going to apply this to the excuse me, I'm going to apply this to the node image, and you can see there it is. It's in the node image, we can see it. But as soon as I add an image to the node image, it's gone, because the image now covers it. Okay, so if you wanted to create an indent into a node image, what you would need to do is apply this to another element on top of it. So if I got a container, here we go, made it the same size as, so let's just close this preview image for the minute because it's in the way. So I've got a node image here. What's the size of this? This is 9963. So if I got the container and made that 9963, I am going to place this on top of it. So where is it? 52216, 52216. So they're like, now they're on top of each other. All right, I can now comfortably apply this to the container. All right, and the container will now give me this inner shadow. There we go. So, or the inset. So this is how we've made this work. Now the good thing is, because it's a different element, very much like the text boxes, what I could do is select both of those and put them, hang on, he says, let's go back. What did I do? Oh, I broke it again. Good at that. Right, so that's my container, that's that. Right, I could put them in there. So let's have a look. I've moved it, I've destroyed it. Okay, perhaps I came out too far, so re-undo. Re-undo. That's not working, is it? So let's do this container. Where is it? Here. Is it still got that? No, it hasn't. That's why it's not showing. Okay, so let's see that. So we've got the drop shadow there. So basically what I'm going to do is what we did before, all right, is I'm going to hide the container, and I'm going to say on mouse over parent, when that equals true, I want to see the container. Okay, so what's going to happen is, you can see we've got this indenting happening now, but just to make it that a little bit extra special, I'm going to go to the node image and I'm going to go to the scaling, and I'm going to say mouse over parent equals true. I'm going to scale this down to 0.9. Don't want to do anything major with it, just scale it down to 0.9. And the reason being is that when we hover over it and indent, I want it to get smaller. Now that's actually gone a bit too mad. All right, so let's have a look here. So I could do, let me think. Do 9, 8. That would probably do it. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. There we go. So the idea is there is on the styling then, so as I hover over it, not only do we get the inner shadow to make it look like it's indenting, but we're actually making the image slightly smaller as well. There we go. And that is a really nice effect for the node images. Okay, and of course what I could do is make the container, because the container is permeable. In other words, I can't touch it. All right, it doesn't. The actual mouse cannot interact with it. It's a non-active area. I can choose at this point to either make it permeable, in other words, an active element. All right, give it the hand cursor, and I could actually give the container the action to mouse click, open next panorama. It would hotspot default view. And what I could also do at this point, let's get rid of this. Again, grab a cloner, draw a clone around it very quickly, make it vertical, and we've now got this very, very quickly. We've made a thumbnail menu with a little bit of extra oomph with the drop shadow. Okay, so let's just have a, oh, I'm bringing this back over because I did move it off screen so I didn't break anything. Let's just see why we're not seeing that. So there's the cloner, and do 10 by 10. There we go, and here we are. So you can see this effect. Obviously what I could do is like what I did here, put a box behind it, a rectangle behind it, and make that a nice little corner, and you can see straight away we can start to make this look a lot nicer. Okay, all right. Any questions whilst I'm just slurping on my tea? Karen?
No, there aren't any questions, but we can maybe give it a minute. Somebody has a question pop into mind. Type it up quickly.
Yeah, my voice is going south. All right, well, I'll carry on, and okay. we can add some more bits. Right, okay, so going to go back to our node image then, and what I want to look at now with styling is filters. Wow. Now filters, there's lots of them and they're really cool. So if I do CSS filters, we could let's do a blur filter. So W3 schools properties, filter properties, that'll do. Right. Okay, so again, the code is always going to start with its name and it's always going to end with a semicolon. You don't have to worry about anything else. So here is a grayscale. All right, so it's not a blur one, this is going to be a grayscale. And this is going to do what it says on the tin. All right, this is actually going to make this image black and white. All right, so let's just paste that in. Grayscale 100%. And when we have a look at it, the monochrome. Okay, cool. Now, the thing is, like I did with the text box, what I could do is copy and paste this. All right, stick that there. And that's going to be node I've got a cursor active, and this would be node normal. Right, so node normal, then what I could do is give this the, which it's got is the grayscale, and this one I could take the grayscale away. Okay, and what I'll also do is take the scaling away from this one as well, because when it's the proper node I want it to be fully visible. And what else do I need to do with this? Get rid of the nice grayscale. So on this one then, on mouse over, I want it to reduce in size because this is going to be our active element, and I want the grayscale. So mouse over parent, reduce it, and then of course what we're going to be doing is mouse over parent. When that's true, make the visibility true, because I want this to be hidden before we mouse over it. So here is all the monochrome ones, and when we mouse over, not only does it indent in, but it turns to color, because I'm obviously changing swapping the two images. I can also, like what we did before, is say not only do we mouse over it, but if it's active, so mouse over parent equals true, or if it's active, I want to see this. So theoretically then, if I always use that word theoretically, I should stop that really, because it's definitely going to work. So here it's monochrome, and when I change nodes, we then swap those as well because it's active. Okay, so that's quite a cool little feature, just using the filter. Now the thing is, there's lots of filters. So let's just CSS filters. So we've already been here, so let's have a look at this one. We've got filter. So if we scroll down the page, let's just see what attributes we can actually do. We can actually, we can affect blur. We can affect brightness, contrast. What else can we do? The grayscale, which we've done, hue, invert, opacity. We've got lots of things we can play with this. So basically the syntax, or basically how you would do this, is got filter colon space, and it says grayscale. But what I could do is use the blur, and the blur one, if we looked, you say you got brightness and blur. Blur is in pixels, so I'd need to type in, say, 10 px. If I was to use the brightness one, I would put in, I don't know 100%. Okay, so let's just see if there's any ones down here. So yeah, there's one that's already set to blur. All right, so what I'm going to do is copy that, and we're going to paste this into this one. All right, so this is the monochrome one. Now this may or may not work. If it doesn't work, I will show you how to get it going. So here we've got filter grayscale 100%, so it's going to be monochrome, and it's going to be blurry by 5 pixels. All right, so let's just see if this actually works. Okay, which it does. See, 5% is way too much, or 5 is way too much. Okay, so let's just go back to that and set that blur back down to, say, 1. Okay, let's actually go to the live preview. Oh, let's click OK before we can do that. And here we've got a slight blur. All right, now the problem here is, all right, it's broken the other filter. This is exactly what the problem is, right? This is what I wanted to get to. It's broken the other filter. Why is that? it's because I'm throwing two of the same attributes at this. So it's ignoring the grayscale and going straight to the blur. Now basically, if you've got the same filter, it starts with the word filter, and then we've got grayscale, and then it ends with a semicolon. But what I could do is, I only want this bit because it's a filter already. So if I copy that, all right, I'm going to put a space there and put that in, and then I can delete that. So now what we're saying is the filter is going to do grayscale 100%, and it's also going to give me 1 pixel blur. All right, when I do that, boom, it all works. There we go. So that's a little bit of building on the filter. All right, so if you've got, you know, the same sort of CSS attribute, and you're trying to do two of them, so in this case I'm grayscaling and blurring, I can't have two separate filters. I need to incorporate it into one filter call, and when we do that, then it all works, and we can do and have effects like this. All right, now I think there's also sepia filters and other different filters and whatnot, but you can see it's all coming together quite nicely just there. Okay, I think that's enough to do with border radiuses and filters. We've had a look at that. There's other filters that you can play with, as I say, brightness. One of the other things I didn't do, which I'm kicking myself for now, and I'm going to go back to it, is that when we did the buttons, right, on the active button, so if you have a look at this, you'll see that when we hover over it, it just dips in. As a nice little touch, and as a touch for this as well, is you could, let me have a think. When it indents, so on the active one, on the text, we could make it a little bit grey. All right, because it makes sense to me that if it's dipped in, it's no longer catching the light, so therefore it'd be a little bit darker, and that makes that look so much nicer. And you can do the same thing here. See, when that dips in, all right, you would imagine if it was actually dipping in, it's not catching the light. So let's do this. If we do the CSS, what was it? Filter, right? Go back to this one. I want to go to the we have brightness, and that was, so I'm just going to copy that. All right, and I'm just going to move that off screen because I may need to come back to it. But basically, if I go back to my node image, so this is the active one, right? So this is the one that we're going to hover over. I'm going to, oh, actually now I need the whole, the all of the code for that. So let's just bring that back on so we can see what I'm doing. So it's the blur, brightness. There we go. So filter, brightness, and that's set for 200. So that's the active node, and the idea is that when it's set back, I want it to be slightly darker. All right, but at the moment it's going to go quite bright. So because that's 100% is exactly the same brightness as it is. So anything below 100, it will get darker. So at 200, it will get stupidly bright. Hang on. So let's just see that. See that? So that's stupidly bright when it's active. Yeah. Don't want to do that. What I want to do is I want to make it slightly darker. So let's do, I don't know, 80. See what that gives us when it's active. All right. So the idea is that when it's indented, not only is it indented, but it's gone slightly darker than the normal image. I mean, you can't really see that because of the amount of blur I've given it and everything else, but you understand what I mean here. So here, an active, the idea is that when the text is, you know, embossed or debossed, as it were, the text, the white is grey. It's no longer white because it's now out of the sight of the light, and it's the same here as well. They are details, but they're easy details you can do, and it does make things look, that makes it look so much nicer. The mere fact that it's slightly off white, you can make it a little bit darker, but I found that going too mad with it, and it does then start to look a bit nasty. But Yeah, that makes it look so much nicer, and you can do the same thing here. So that was using another filter, the brightness filter, and taking it down. Okay, that's that. Now, with other CSS, one of the things that cropped up in the forum a long time ago, somebody asked, oh, actually, no, I've just noticed we got some questions. So before I go on to the next thing, throw it back open to Karen. Karen, can we have these questions, please?
Yeah. So Oliver has a question, and he admits it is off topic, but I think it's a yes or no answer, so we can quickly go answer it. Are you able to apply sound effects to button hover actions?
Well, if you're doing it like this, then yes, because what you could do is on hover on the active, you can give it mouse, enter, media, play a sound once. So if you've got a sound that's like a click, so when you hover over it, click, you would get it. So yes.
Okay, so yeah, short answer, yes. Oliver has yet another question. Do you have any examples of CSS that displays on touch devices for when clicking buttons? Yeah, I think it's a good thing to
It's the
touch
same.
on.
It's the same. The only problem with touch devices, because this would still work. This would, if you touch the container, it will swap the images, and what you see here, what I'm hovering over with the mouse, will work with your finger. But sadly, with your finger is in the way, so therefore, the effect is lost because you've got a pinky covering it. All right. So that's basically. But yes, this will still work with a touchscreen device.
Could you? I mean, it's also possible that you could create some other effect, like using logic blocks or something, like so that so maybe the button image moves when you touch it or something like that. No.
Absolutely. And of course, another effect as well is that we actually touched on borders and just put in a curve so you could actually have a button with the top left and bottom right curved, and when you touched it, when you swapped them out, you could change the curve to the opposite sides. So not only do you have a color and an indent, you could actually physically change the shape on mouse over, because we've got two elements we're playing with. Yeah, so we can set the attributes separately. So this is just this is I think the only limitation here, with a little bit of understanding of what you can do, is your own imagination, really, because there's loads here that can really add a lot of polish to basic skins. So
yeah,
right.
Agreed.
Anything else?
Yeah, I think just to touch on that, you've opened up a world of more opportunities. If you didn't know about all the CSS stuff before, and now you're just learning it, now it's more a question of like, oh no, what do I, what can I do? What do I do?
Absolutely. I mean, when I want to do something, the first thing I do is go to the internet, because both Thomas and Christoph or anyone who knows me will tell you, I'm not a CSS junkie. I'm not a code junkie, but I just have the ability that if I want to find something, I'll type in the word CSS and then whatever I want behind it, and see what pops up on the search engine. And then I'll spend a bit of time having a little look. If I find something I really like this button, like taking a basic text box and turn it into a really nice looking button, then I'll go, right, I'll have that. I'll right button click, save it as a component. I can use it for another project later on. And that's it, and so I don't mind spending, a few hours finding something, and then saving it as a component, and then it's ready to use instantly for future projects. And also, I don't mind spending time, because I'm helping you. Because the idea of me spending time looking for this is so you guys don't have to. I'm pointing you in the right direction. But with this webinar, the basically underlining thing here is just saying, right, we've got text shadows, you've got box shadows, it's the terminology, CSS, it's filters, and there's another one I want to get into my next one, but there's lots of, it's the terminology. Once you've got the terminology down, I think you're gonna get this.
I think
this isn't rocket science.
I think once you realize that there's, if you take it even back further, if you're not a programmer or do anything with websites or anything like that, you wouldn't know that CSS probably exists, and you probably wouldn't know that you can use CSS to make buttons or to change the drop shadows or something like that. Like, this would be unknown. So first knowing that, one, you can use CSS and then apply it in such a fashion, and then knowing where to go, what to do, how do you plug the stuff in. So yeah, I think, that's what I mean. Like, if you didn't know that CSS existed in the first hand, that you could do this stuff, then it just opens up way more possibilities. And so yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Right.
So that's it for the questions. So let you finish up.
Okay. The one thing I want to cover next, as I say, this cropped up in the forum, and that was, how do you rotate an element? So I looked at this and I thought, you know what, there's got to be a way that it's going to happen in CSS. So I typed in, continuously rotate CSS, blah, blah, blah. And lo and behold, it all popped up. So I'm going to show you how. Now, I'm just going to draw a rectangle here. Here we go. And we're going to get this to rotate. So basically, all I did, again, was internet search. So continue. Image using CSS. Right, okay. Right, so this was it. And this basically website popped up. I know it's just come straight through it. I don't know why, but it came up with the search, and I came to this. Now, this was interesting, this website, because it says here, add this CSS instruction to the element, which is what we are doing. All right, so we're actually taking an individual CSS instruction and adding it to the elements. Now, you can see when we went to other pages, we had the classes and the curly brackets, and we just ignored that and took the bit that we wanted. But this website is brilliant because it shows you exactly why and what's going on and how you can do it. So it says here, basically add this bit to your style sheet, right? So what I'm going to do is copy this, right, and I'm going to move that off screen, and I'm going to go to the embedded style sheets. Now, I know I said I'm going to try and leave this alone, but for this one, you need to do this, all right? And I'm going to just add it there. I'm not being very neat, so don't worry about it, but that's the style sheets. That's basically this bit where it says, as this line outside of any selector. So that's what that means, all right? So now what I can do is take this bit of text, or this piece of CSS code, all right? So with that done, I can click OK. I can then go to the rectangle and paste it in. When we look at it, it rotates. Wow. And we've also got a time here. So it's how many times, so how many seconds it takes to do one revolution. So if I was to set that to 1, you see it goes a little bit faster, and if I set it to 5, it goes a lot slower. All right, so we've got this rotation thing going on. And I thought, well, this is really cool, but wouldn't it be cool if I could rotate it left and right, and how do I do that? Okay, so how? All right, so what I did was I copied and pasted another rectangle. Now, this is another little gotcha that got me. You do need your element IDs to be set to be different. I was playing with this, and what actually happened was I left the names the same, and when I started putting some CSS in, it wasn't working. And I was scratching my head and thinking, I really don't know what's going on here. Why? And then I realised the names. As soon as I changed the ID so they were unique, everything started working. So it does affect the element targeting its ID. So if you've got two sets of different sets of CSS in two elements that are identically named, then it's going to start causing problems. So this is why it needs to be done. Right, so anyway, I thought, right, I've got two elements. I've got one going one way and one going the other way. So how can we sort this out? So what I did is I went back to the main part of the CSS, and it's got keyframes rotation, and it's rotate 02359. So that makes, reading that, regardless of all the curly brackets and where they are and the way it's laid out and semicolons, just reading it makes sense. So I've got keyframes, which is part of animation. It's going to rotate, and it's going to rotate it from 0 degrees to 359. So when it gets to 359, it goes back to 0. So 360 degrees. And the CSS code is, let's have a look. It shows you here. It's rotation and how long is it going to take to do it. All right. Okay. And it's linear. Now that bit comes in a minute. We're going to play with that, and it's quite good fun. But anyway, so that's basically the code. So, but how do I make it go backwards? Because all the code necessary to make it go forwards is actually in this embedded style sheet. So what I did was say, right, well, okay, the actual CSS in the element is referencing rotation. So I went CW, all right, so clockwise. And when I went back to it, it's rotation, and I put in CW clockwise. All right. Does it still work? Yes, it does, because the other one I've not done yet, right? Okay. Even though it was a copy, I didn't send the CW here, so that's why it's not rotating, okay? Because we've now changed what we are actually going to be calling things. So this chunk of code says it's going to rotate clockwise. So what I did was I copied that, put a space under it, pasted it, put in counterclockwise, and under 359 I just put a minus, so that's going the other way. All right, okay, sounds logical. So now what we do is on this one, I can put in counterclockwise, and when we look at it, boom, they're spinning in different directions. Now if you're a code junkie, you could probably say to me, Martin, you can just do this in one code block in the style sheet and whatnot. I don't know enough to do that, but what I do know is this was fairly simple in the way that I just looked for this word rotation, and I found that in the style sheet, and I thought, right, okay, so this is what's associating this to what's in the style sheet. Cool. All right, so that's basically how we made this, you know, this hotspot that we saw in the intro video. Now what you could also do is, if I was to put a rectangle in the middle of that, let's make it what, 50 by 50, set the radius to it to I don't know, 909, place that somewhere in the middle and have a look. We've got something like that going on. All right, so if I made that a little bit bigger and we made the rectangles slightly different colors, as an example, let's make them, I don't know, red, and see what that looks like. You can see that, you know, you can start making some pretty funky looking hotspots if you wish, or things to bring your attention to what's going on. All right, so let's just get rid of that. Now, one of the things that I saw this word linear, and I'm thinking, what does that mean? Well, what's the word linear mean? It means it's straight. It means it does something and it stops. There's a start and stop and nothing changes. So I had a little look around, and I came up with, I actually found a website that, I mean, let's have a look on this website that that I originally got the code from, and it doesn't show me. Right, okay, so I did a web search, and I thought, right, well, what attributes can I give to an animation? And I think, let me have a look. So I think what I did was I searched for animation CSS linear, something like that. Let's see what that brings up. So animation timing functions properties. So we had, that was linear. What else we got? Ease in. This is it. So I found ease in, ease out, and all this sort of stuff. And I thought, this looks interesting. So what I did was copy that, and thought, I'll bet you that's going to make my rotation quite funky. So I'll stuck that in there. So let's put that in. No, it's not working. Why not? So let's go back to the website. I bet I've lost it now. Yeah, I have. Right, doesn't matter because I copied it down. So let's just do ease in, ease out, and paste that in there. Right, 2 colons. Right, so I've got ease in, ease out. And there we go. Let's you can see what's happening. It slows and starts again, which I thought was quite a good effect. So let's just have a look at this. Let's just copy that, and I'm going to paste that. I did say copy and pasting was a prerequisite of this webinar. So yeah, I'm going to stick that on the end, and we need semicolon even. So now what we've got is this ease in and out effect. Alright, now there's actually different attributes. We had linear, we had ease in, ease out, or ease out, so it starts and then stops slowly and whatnot. So there's actually quite a few little attributes you can add to this. But this is basically rotating an object inside Pano 2 VR, and it does work quite well. And yeah, as I say, up to your imagination what you do with this, but you know, it's quite cool. You can use this in conjunction with a container. So as an example, if I was to draw a container like that, and then add these to the container, set the container to masking. He says, where have I gone? I've gone too past it. I might know. Hang on, container, go to masking, and have a look. You can, you know, that's quite, well, it's probably not thick enough really to actually show you, but you know, we do that. You can start making some funky effects. You can actually have it so if we moved these two to the bottom of the container or just out, you can have like this effect. I mean, it really is down to your own imagination, what you do with it, how you play with it. You know, we can mask certain bits off. I mean, if I go back to the finished skin, I mean, I think I'm just about done now, so I'm going to go back to the original skin and show you how this was built. This was built very much how we've just described everything. This is the hotspot template. He says, can't see it, but it's got the two rectangles that use the rotate, ease in, ease out attributes. And the only other thing I did is that I added my rectangles around the top, and this one that covered the thumbnails also had the border radius to curve the edge. So if we have a look at this, you can see the finished result of that skin. Very, very simple, very basic. It used all the techniques that we've shown. So the node image is slightly scaled smaller. It had the container over the top that had the inner shadow. And yeah, when we output this is it's quite a nice basic little skin. And then that's those attributes we were choosing there. What I did do with the hotspot image is I changed it by 90 degrees, because otherwise it starts off going across and then starts, but I wanted it to start going vertically. As you can see, it stops vertically, it starts from there. So I just changed the let's have a look and just show you what I mean. Let's have a look at the rectangle. So here it was, the angle started at 90 degrees. If I was to set that back to 0, where before it starts and stops vertically, it will now start and stop horizontally. And there we go. So yeah, and the only other thing is I did here as well is I put in an inner shadow inside there as well, so it gives you a little bit of a shadow on the inside, and that just made it the same. And I just copied the color we used for all the buttons and the backgrounds and just used the same background for the node image. And that was it, and that was basically how this skin was built, and they were all the tips and tricks and how I styled this skin. And I think that brings me to a nice close, other than to say, do we have any more questions?
We do.
Awesome.
So, hi Gustavo. He's asking, can we apply a CSS command to a button, like, or a SVG or a PNG to make it blink? And yeah, he says he just joined, and no, Gustavo, that was not covered. But
no, it wasn't covered. I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is an animation blink. Let's have a look. You know, this is a new window, so CSS motion. Okay, and see what happens.
Blinking dots.
What?
I saw blinking dots. A quick intro to CSS
Blinking dots
animation.
or a blinking dot?
Blinking dots.
Blinking dots. Here we go. So there probably is a...
Yeah.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Shiny. So here, keyframe. So this is actually something that, you know, this would actually be in the skin style sheet by the looks of it. I don't know. And then, so groups. So yeah, there's definitely a CSS action on. Here we go. So blinking dots. So that would be in the skin style sheet, and then you would give that. So blink 2 seconds, infinite, whatever. That would actually be in the elements, I would imagine. I haven't done it, but the mere fact that it's here, it's CSS. The answer's got to be yes. It's just you just got to work out how to apply it.
I think the one thing, Gustavo, you might have missed was Martin say there's endless possibilities. So if you are thinking, can this be done? Most likely it can be done. So yeah. And Luke is asking, why not use 359 to 0 instead of 0 to 359? I don't know.
You can. I'm going to break this now. I know I am. But you can. I did actually find... I was playing with this big time. So let's just make a copy of... Actually, no, I won't. I will just use the same skin. So if we go back to this skin 2, let's go back to the skin, he says. Right, let's take these 2 elements out of here. Right, I actually found, right, I say I actually found, it makes me sound like I'm a genius. I'm not, seriously, I'm really not. But what I discovered was if I was to set this to 359 and this to 0, in here, the from and to, I could set 50% and 100%. And what actually happened? So let's just do this. So on the counterclockwise one, so let's just take that back to rotation. I'm going to add that to. I'm going to change that to 50%. Now something really weird happened, and I was like, wow. But I need to find out more about what was going on. So I was going to change that to 359 and this one to 0, right? So that's the and this is just going to be purely for rotation. Okay, so let's just set this one to not clockwise, so it's just for rotation, and I'm going to move that one out of the way. All right, so this one's purely just rotation. Let's see what that did. It made it rock side to side. Okay, so I was like, wow, okay, that looks pretty cool. There's an effect. And when I was looking into this, it was literally because I just played around, and you know, my job is to try and break things, and that's what I was trying to do here. And so here, so basically I found that if that was set to 0 and this was set to 359, this did not work. However, it could be that I just needed to swap the 100% and 50% down here. I don't know. I don't know how I managed to get to this, but I didn't see it anywhere. I was just playing with it. But, you know, why? I don't know. I don't think it actually makes any difference, to be fair. I did swap. So if we swap that one to 359, and then swap the other... 9 and swap this one down to 0, I think in the output, so this is the one we're affecting right here, right? So if I click OK to that one, it just makes it go backwards. Okay. Oh, is that because I got rid of the... Yeah, okay, so that's the reason why then. So 0 to 359 is going clockwise, 359 to 0 goes counterclockwise, but if you just put a minus in there, that will then make it go around the other way again. So yeah, either or either. You can either swap them around or just put a minus in.
Sorry, I was mesmerized by watching these bars
Yeah, I know.
spin. Oh, okay.
Taking the skin for a spin.
So Gustavo has another question. He says it's a little bit off topic. Oh yeah, that's really off topic.
Yeah, I'm trying to get. Obviously,
Yeah,
this is being
I think
recorded. So
Gustavo, with your question, why don't you write us an email about that? This has nothing to do with what we're talking about today, unfortunately. So, yeah, cool. But we'll help you out with that via email. Yep, cool.
and for reference for the recording, that nasty little clank you just heard was my mat stuck to the bottom of my glass, dropping onto the table.
Oh, I hate it when that happens.
Anyway, I'm done. It's been a long one today, but I think worth doing, and lots of little tips and tricks in there. Yeah, just knock yourself out really with all what's going on. So I think from me, thank you first of all, thank you all for turning up today. Very much appreciated. And yeah, from me, thank you very much. Until next time. Karen, do you want to say what we're doing next time? Do you remember what we're doing next time?
Have we made a decision yet?
I think we did, wasn't it? The colour tool.
Oh right, I forgot the color tool. Right. A deep dive into the color tool.
Yeah, it's got to think about that one.
Yeah. So. Cool.
Okay, so yeah.
Thanks for hanging out with us so long, everyone. I hope you got something out of that, and yeah. So have a good evening, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
Okay, right. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.